Welcome to the 29th episode of the JewishDrink.com podcast. I'm very excited to have you here. I'm your host, Rabbi Drew Kaplan. This episode is an archaeological episode just like we had last week. I'm very excited. Professor Loren Spiegel joins us to discuss a mosaic involving a drinking scene, or really a series of drinking scenes in 3rd century Sepphoris, or Sepphoris as people might know it in Hebrew. So here you go.
And today we have on as guest, we have Professor Loren Spiegel, who is the Associate Professor of Classical and Rabbinic Judaism at Portland State University. The Fighting Vikings, maybe? We don't know. Someone will find out on the internet. So we're discussing a mosaic found from the beginning of the 3rd century of the Common Era, right? In Sepphoris.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
So this, so just to set the context, so Sepphoris or Sepphoris in English is in Israel. It's a city. It's also where a lot of activity took place in the constructing of the Mishnah, or at least the editing and publishing of it, and where Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Judah the Prince was.
The important thing to note about Sepphoris or Sepphoris is that it's a Jewish city, right? And has been a Jewish city from its founding, even after the 2 failed revolts. Right. So once the Romans take over completely, it's still actually a Jewish city. That is to say, predominantly Jews live there, and it seems to be founded at least, by Jews for Jews originally. But it looks like a Greco-Roman city in every other way, right? So it's an interesting environment. And then what you just said is it's also where a lot of prominent rabbis lived and worked. Even the most prominent rabbi of them all, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, right? So this is an interesting sort of laboratory to study what Jews were doing at the time.
For those who haven't seen the episode yet or listened to it, we have a whole Wine in the Mishnah episode.
Yeah.
So people
Which I
can
think
go.
We're going to have to come back to a little bit.
Sure.
In the course of our discussion, I think it'll remind you of some things. Let's start with this mosaic. And I thought, I tried to bring some printouts
That's great.
Of things so we could kind of talk a little bit about these images because, you usually talk about texts on your show, right? And you can talk about the text because you both know each other, but it's hard to talk about images without showing them. So this is a house in Sepphoris, the largest private dwelling in the town. And as you can see, it's pretty impressive. The design of the house is basically that it has kind of like 2 main rooms here, right, with smaller rooms all around. And so this would have been the really most public part of this house. It included a peristyle courtyard, like an outdoor garden space. And right next to that, what we call a triclinium, which is a Roman-style dining room. And it's in that dining room that we find this really amazing mosaic.
Can I just pause you right there?
Yeah.
So triclinium is called that because there are 3 couches that people can recline on, right?
Well, yeah.
Now, why only 3? I mean, could it only accommodate 3 drinkers?
No. The 3 couches it's not necessarily where the feasters are, right? So I don't know if you can see this so well, but here's the mosaic here. And then on top of it, there's this kind of like upside down white U. So the couches, the 3 cleani, would have been there, and it's really like they're leaning up on those to eat. But there would have been numerous feasters, kind of laying on other couches next to this thing, right?
Okay.
So what you think of as couches is really kind of more like what we would think of as like a dining room table.
Okay. So it really could
so
accommodate
it's not just 3 feasters; it's lots of feasters, and actually, everybody's kind of laying. I wish I had a whiteboard or something, but they're laying kind of on diagonal lines, right?
Yeah.
And so one guy is looking at nobody,
Uh-huh.
and one guy's looking at everybody, right? So the way they're seated says a lot about status, right? Obviously, it's better to be right seeing everybody and everybody seeing you than being like stuck in the corner couch.
Yeah. Status.
Right. So it's right in between those couches that the mosaic would have been.
Okay, and I'm gonna go. I know we want to focus on the mosaic, but I am stuck on the triclinium.
Yeah,
In the
no worries.
triclinium, is that the main locus of drinking would be taking place, or would there be another location for drinking?
No, this would have been the place. But I live in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
So, every bar has food. And I think you have to imagine that when there's drinking going on, there's also eating very often as well, or eating something. Right? So what we're really talking about is feasting. This is the room where feasting would happen. And it doesn't look like this isn't like where your normal table is, right? This is where you invite people over to. And have a sort of public meal. With big shots.
Okay. So this is really where the feasting is taking place. That's more the focus than necessarily the drinking?
No, I'm saying most of the times people are drinking. It's probably in this kind of an environment.
Okay.
Right?
And that's where they would have a symposium or a convivium, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not everybody, right?
For those who could afford it.
For those who can afford it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the triclinium's around the mosaic, at least the top part. Right?
Yeah. One of the reasons why this mosaic was famous is because of its quality, right? So I don't know if you can see this. They call her the Mona Lisa of Sepphoris.
Okay.
And even these pictures don't do it justice, right? This is what you might consider a relatively high quality mosaic. If you compare it to other mosaics, I don't know, you're familiar with like some of the synagogue mosaics, like at Beit Alpha, right? That's maybe not as high a quality because there's lots of colors here. That's very expensive. A lot of detail, right?
How does it compare both more broadly in the land of Israel, but also within the Greco-Roman world at the time? How does this mosaic broadly compare to any and all of those?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's pretty up there in detail, and it's reminiscent of other mosaics from private houses in places like Roman North Africa or Antioch, right? So relatively high quality, and it's possible with a mosaic like this. I'm not an expert on mosaics, but that it would have required an artisan from abroad. Possible.
Okay, interesting.
So a very high quality mosaic. The center panel is this one, and it depicts what looks like a drinking contest, right? Or possibly also a drinking contest as a Dionysiac ritual, right? Remember, Dionysus is the god of wine, and he is in a drinking contest with another god, Heracles, which is the Greek name for Hercules, right? Who obviously has his own reputation as a drinker.
Really? Okay.
Sure. Right.
So these are like the two of the most drinkingest, Roman Greco gods. Then going head to head.
These are the drinking gods. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Or cup to cup, as it might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the center panel. Here's the whole carpet. Well, this is the whole inside of the carpet, which shows that actually the whole mosaic carpet shows scenes from the life of the god Dionysus, right? And two panels actually, which have the same title, which is drunkenness or methe in Greek. But if you look, right, you got the top panel, methe, And that's, I don't know if you can see there, he's got a club, right? So who's that going to be? Heracles, Hercules, right? He's in a club. He's wearing his lion skin. How does he look to you? How's he doing?
He's pretty drunk.
He's pretty drunk. How can you tell? I don't know if you can see it so well.
He's laying down. People are trying to help him up. His head's
People are trying to help him up, right? He can't get up. And look at where his club is.
It's off to the side.
He's not even holding it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Hercules has lost his club. And he's laying kind of like half dressed on the floor, and people are trying to pick him up. And
he's lost his power.
Drunkenness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He's lost something, that's for sure. Yeah. And then look at this bottom panel, the same title, Methane, right? That's Dionysus. How's he looking?
Also not the one on the right or the one in blue?
He's the one kind of in the center in blue.
He's all right. He's having a good time, it looks like.
He's got his staff, right? He's still got his staff. In one hand, he's got his cup in the other. He's sitting, he's lounging, but nobody's holding him up.
Right.
Yeah. So I often ask students to kind of
he's looking like he's still having a good time. He can can hold his cup.
Right. So I ask students very often to characterize these like two different kinds of drunkenness. Yeah. So Heracles is what kind of drunk?
He's managing.
No, he's enjoying. Hercules, the first guy.
Oh, Hercules, he couldn't deal with it. He couldn't handle his wine.
I call that frat party drunk, right?
Oh,
just like Blotto. He's lost control of himself.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Dionysus is like dinner party drunk.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right? He's had a little bit to drink in moderation. He hasn't lost his control. He can still banter, right? And he's still in charge, right?
Yep.
And clearly from the fact that this mosaic shows other scenes from the life of Dionysus, it's saying, be dinner party drunk. Be Dionysus drunk. Don't be Heracles drunk.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, could it also, that's true, but could it also reflect maybe they had the exact same amount, but just Hercules just couldn't hold his own. I'll go ahead and call him Hercules. But Dionysus, they could have had the exact same. He's just able to hold his liquor. Could it be, or you think it really was the quantity, and Hercules just had too much?
No, I that's a fair point. But like, know your limit. I think I'm reflecting on the context, right? Remember, this is the dining room where you're inviting people over. And, you know, I think I've stressed these things cost a lot of money. And this is the most public part of your house, right? If you're a big, important person, this is the main thing they're going to see. So, you know, you imagine this is what you want them to think about you and what they're doing there.
It's like
have a good time, but
right. It's artistically setting a norm about drinking in that room. It's saying, be like Dionysus, not like Hercules.
Yeah,
right?
And it's a very upper class Roman perspective on drinking, right? It's not that drinking is bad. You shouldn't completely avoid drink. In fact, drinking is good. We do it in ritual contexts. We do it to have a good time with our friends. We do it in symposia to discuss important ideas, right?
Yeah.
But one of the important tenets of the symposia, right, is that you can manage how much you drink. And you manage how much you drink regarding the topic that's to be discussed at the symposium.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right? Yeah. And do you know how they manage their drink?
I don't. They mix water.
Right, exactly. So this is the Mishnah, right? You mix water. And so if you decide that you're going to talk about something really heady that you're going to really want to get into, maybe you put a little bit extra water in your wine.
It's so fascinating that regulates the alcohol consumption and content.
to a certain extent, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey there, I hope you've been enjoying this episode so far with Professor Loren Spiegel. Stay tuned for later on in this episode when I give you a sneak peek into next week's episode.
So the really other interesting thing about this house, is whose house was it? Right?
Yeah. Well, you said it sat atop this hill in Sepphoris. And by the way, I know one of the articles you share with me that Rabbi Zera, third generation Amora, third century rabbi, said that it's called Sepphoris because it's like a Seppor and then it's sort of floating or flying up there, which I don't know if it's true or not, but it certainly says something about the city's topography, right?
Right. Yes. There's this hill overlooking the rest of the town, and up on that hill, I mean, interesting for me because I've been doing some research on Roman entertainments. There's a big theater up on that hill, and this house is right next to the theater.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The biggest house pretty much in the town, and it's at the highest point, right? So that led the excavators to assume that the most important person in the town lived there, or one of the most important.
Yeah, and this was a mixed city. It wasn't just Jews, right? It was large.
Yeah,
it was a lot of Jews.
It's a mixed city.
Yeah,
but it's a majority Jewish city.
Okay.
And I think you have to imagine, and there's some debate about this, but I mean, not that much debate, that the people who are in charge of the city councilors, are probably mostly Jewish throughout this whole period. The thing is that there's not a terribly Jewish character to the town, after the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. And certainly not after Bar Kokhba revolt.
Okay.
So this is where there's a little bit of debate, right? Like the most Jewish thing you find in Sepphoris is there are some synagogues, but it depends how you date them when they show up, right? It might take a little while. And there are some mikvaot, possibly. But other than that, the public culture of the city looks pretty much like that mosaic I showed you.
It's fairly Roman.
Right? Yeah, fairly Roman, but at the same time, most of the people who live in that town are Jewish. So they're certainly not what we would imagine rabbinic Jews look like, right?
Yeah.
But this might have been what a rich Jew's house could look like.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, the excavators of this building took totally different routes. They actually, when they published it, they couldn't agree. One guy said, look, this is the biggest house in the town. We know who probably the biggest guy in the town was. That was Rabbi Yehuda HaNassi.
Yeah.
So this is probably his house. Right?
Yeah.
If that's true, how do you explain this mosaic?
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. Although he does have, we know that he does converse with he does stuff with the Roman government, right? Or Greek stuff. Like he's involved with that. He's not an isolationist.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I think the best way to understand those stories is that he has relationships with big, important Romans of some kind, right? Not necessarily with the emperor or a governor or, but with important people.
Yeah.
That's true. But I mean, can you still imagine this guy putting this on his, I mean, it costs a lot of money,
Wow.
you know, on the floor of your house. And he also has Jews over, you know. We
Could
have
he
to
have bought
imagine.
it?
Huh?
Could someone else have made it? Could someone else have made the mosaic or the house, and he subsequently purchased it from him?
That would also be, I mean, maybe, I guess so.
Okay.
Certainly, it seems like the level of artistry suggests a pagan artist, right? A mosaicist. But actually, so the other excavator totally rejected this argument, right? Which is to say that this is a high quality mosaic. It's really well thought out. It seems to be almost kind of religiously devoted to Dionysus. So therefore, it probably couldn't have been a Jew. And therefore, must have been a pagan, probably a pagan devotee of Dionysus. That could explain why it's so close to the theater, right? Because Dionysus is also the god of theater.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Right, they took these different routes and they just couldn't agree. It seems to me there's another option, which is this is actually a prominent non-rabbinic Jew's house, right? And might give us a window. I mean, at least a third option into what a prominent non-rabbinic Jew's attitude towards wine and drinking might have been.
Oh, yeah.
You asked me for material culture. This is what I came up with.
That's good.
How can we kind of get into the mind of this prominent, possibly non-rabbinic Jew, who is mostly looks like a Greco-Roman in every way. If you look at his house and what he does.
Yeah, that's the surrounding culture.
But there's a deeper there's a kind of deeper level to this too.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where we come back to text. Because I know, have been talking a lot about rabbinic attitudes towards drinking in general. I don't. How would you characterize that attitude?
The attitude as depicted on the mosaic?
No. In generally, like rabbinic texts. If you had to sum it up for somebody, what would you say?
I would say drinking is a part of life. There's wisdom towards it. I don't know that there's. I mean, they probably say stuff against getting drunk out of your mind. I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know that I've even come across that yet. They're not fond of it, but drinking is a part of life. It's a daily activity. It's there. It's a way to elevate what we do.
Right, and so it's a part of life, and it's a way of enjoying something. Right?
Yeah.
I was thinking in particular of a text from the Tosefta, which talks about, like whether or not we should eat meat or drink wine now that the temple's destroyed, right? Should we give those things up completely now that the temple's destroyed? Because obviously the whole point of having wine and meat, we do it in the temple. We sacrifices, that's meat. Libations, that's wine.
Yep.
And this is rejected. I think it's Rabban Gamliel who rejects it, which is maybe not a surprise, but right.
Yeah.
And this is rejected. Like we can't give up on that stuff completely, right? That's too excessive.
It's too much.
Right. Like we're not Nazarites here, and that's not expected of everybody. Some level of it is. The rabbis always advocate self-control and not losing oneself. So if you kind of think about it, then the rabbi's attitude towards drinking is also kind of Romanized. Maybe not to the same degree as this mosaic, but they're also kind of at the same time affected by the same values.
What are you working on these days?
That's coming out on Jewish attitudes towards Roman entertainment.
Oh yeah.
In the ancient period, so starting with Herod and ending with the rabbis, and then I'm actually researching a book on violence right now.
Oh, very neat.
It's towards violence and non-violence. I'm still kind of flushing out exactly what its parameters are, but.
And when is that first book going to come out?
It should be out very, very soon. I don't have a specific date for you.
Okay.
In the final stages of production.
Oh, exciting!
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
So definitely, in the next couple months.
That's very exciting.
Hey there, I hope you've been enjoying this episode featuring Professor Loren Spiegel so far. It's not done yet, and I'm really excited at this point in time to share with you a sneak peek for next week's episode featuring Professor Stan Mervis discussing Jews' involvement in the 18th century Caribbean rum trade.
And also, Jews are major planters. It's a very conspicuous part of how they define themselves, even if they're not seen that way. And so in places like Suriname and Barbados and Jamaica, where there's these plantation economies, Jews are absolutely involved in sugar growing and in sugar producing in the process.
Cool. Well, Professor Spielman, thank you so much for taking the time to share about this mosaic. I appreciate it. And thank you so much. And l'chaim.
L'chaim. Thanks.
Absolutely.